tide. When the storm gets rough, we ain't gonna hide. Propaganda swirling, but it won't touch me. Only love around, that's how it's gonna be. Keep moving forward, never looking back. The truth's in the power, it's an unstoppable track. In the city lights where dreams collide, we hustle through the night, fire in our stride. Whispers in the dark can't dim my glow. With rhythm in my soul, I'm ready for the show. We break the chains, rewrite the rules in this concrete jungle where nobody's fools. Unity sings louder than the lies they scheme. In the heart of the struggle, we dare to dream. Keep moving forward, never looking back. The truth's in the power, it's an unstoppable track.
Another Queen Ahmadiyyah production.
Haze on the corner, they talking real loud. Spreading on light, trying to bring me down. Enemies love you, but I won't back away. Got a vision in my mind, I'm here to stay. Got my crew beside me, we rise like a tide. When the storm gets rough, we ain't gonna hide. Propaganda swirling, but it won't touch me. Only love around, that's how it's gonna be. Keep moving forward, never looking back. The truth's in the power, it's an unstoppable track. In the city lights where dreams collide, we hustle through the night, fire in our stride. Whispers in the dark can't dim my glow. With rhythm in my soul, I'm ready for the show. We break the chains, rewrite the rules in this concrete jungle where nobody's fools. Unity sings louder than the lies they scheme. In the heart of the struggle, we dare to dream. Keep moving forward, never looking back. The truth's in the power, it's an unstoppable track. Haze on the corner, they talking real loud. Spreading on light, trying to bring me down. Enemies love you, but I won't back away. Got a vision in my mind, I'm here to stay. Got my crew beside me, we rise like a tide. When the storm gets rough, we ain't gonna hide. Propaganda swirling, but it won't touch me. Only love around, that's how it's gonna be. Keep moving forward, never looking back. The truth's in the power, it's an unstoppable track. In the city lights where dreams collide, we hustle through the night, fire in our stride. Whispers in the dark can't dim my glow. With rhythm in my soul, I'm ready for the show. We break the chains, rewrite the rules in this concrete jungle where nobody's fools. Unity sings louder than the lies they scheme. In the heart of the struggle, we dare.
Right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning back in once again to the original Queen Ahmadiyyah show. I'm your host, Queen Ahmadiyyah, and this is your daily vitamins. So as you're coming in, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click that notification bell and click the word all so you're notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live. Also, please double check and make sure you're still subscribed, especially if you have not been receiving the notifications. All right, so let's see who's in here. Okay, Juju B is in the virtual building, 504 Nola, Byron B. All right, let's get into it, Mr. Elevation. Charlene is here, Queen of Mona Huey. All right, everybody hit that like button. Cherokee Descended Dale, we the people. All right, Dark 2. Timothy, I see you, beloved. Desmond, all right. Deep Co. All right, Danielle. All right, shout out to all of my loyal royals and everyone tuned into the Queen. I see you, Queen Shay, and a big shout out to my moderators because y'all know they be putting in work. I see you, G from the land, okay, and Volvo to you to love. Okay, so with that all being said, let's get into it. But first, let's have a brief word from my sponsor at 12 Tribes. All right, shout out to Sean. Here we go.
Do not buy 12 Tribes on Earth hair growth oil and hair magic elixir unless you want super healthy, gorgeous hair that grows. They have a whole line of amazing hair growth products, including hair growth leave-in conditioner spray, hair growth shampoo, hair growth spray, and hair growth butter. I'm starting to sense a theme here. They include quality natural ingredients. They smell amazing, and you can see the results for yourself. So if you're looking for healthy hair growth for your natural or relaxed hair, try 12 Tribes on Earth today.
All right, so with that all being said, don't forget you can purchase 12 Tribes hair oil at Etsy.com. Just look for Lisa Crafts. You can also find it at walmart.com. Okay, and she sells beard oil. Okay, so let's get into it because Trump has lost his mind, y'all. Russia says that the U.S. has seized their oil tanker, and they say it's illegal and it goes against maritime law. Okay, and a Russian lawmaker actually called it piracy. All right, so let's get into it. All nefarious. Trump's going to have everybody coming for us. I just want you all to know. Okay, so Russia said on Wednesday that the U.S. seizure of a Russian-flagged oil tanker in the Atlantic was a violation of maritime law, and a senior lawmaker described it as outright piracy. Now, Russia's transport ministry said contact with the vessel, the Monera, had been lost after U.S. naval forces boarded it near Iceland as parts of efforts to block oil exports from Venezuela. Because, you know, Trump had a whole blockade set up. Okay, so supposedly some BRICS oil tankers tried to get through the blockade, like they were going to bogart their ways through, according to reports. Now they say Russia's transport ministry said contact with the vessel had ceased. Now, in accordance with the 1982 UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, freedom of navigation applies in the high seas, and no state has the right to use force against vessels duly registered in the jurisdictions of other states. Okay, that's what the ministry said in a statement. Okay, Russia is demanding that the United States ensure humane and decent treatment of the Russian crew members and their swift return home. Now, state news agency TASS quoted the foreign ministry as saying that the Monera, originally known as the Bella 1, had previously slipped through a U.S. maritime blockade of sanctioned tankers in the Caribbean. They say the blockade was part of a U.S. pressure campaign against Venezuela that culminated when President Donald Trump sent in U.S. Special Forces on January the 3rd to capture Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and bring him to New York to face drug trafficking charges, which he has denied. Let me tell you all something. I don't believe that Maduro is going to be found guilty. I think that they've messed up this whole case with all their lies and BS. And a lot of the lies that they have told are absolutely on video and printed because Trump posted a lot of things on Truth Social with his stupid self. And we all know that what they did violates world law and international law. So I don't think this case is going to hold up. Trump's just an idiot and he's doing all of this just for greed. But let me continue. Now, they say after a law enforcement operation, this happened after a law enforcement operation that killed several dozen people in Venezuela. The U.S. has engaged now in outright piracy on the high seas. Okay, this is what Andrei Klishas, a lawmaker from the ruling United Russian Party, posted to Telegram. Saying two U.S. officials speaking on the condition of anonymity told Reuters that Wednesday's operation was carried out by the Coast Guard and U.S. military. They said Russian military vessels, including a submarine, were in the general vicinity. There were no indications of any confrontation between U.S. and Russian military forces. Now, relations between Moscow and Washington plunged to their worst state since the Cold War after Russia invaded Ukraine in February of 2022, though they have become more cordial since. Okay, and this is since Trump began his second term last year and started engaging with President Vladimir Putin to seek to end the conflict. Now, military incidents between the nuclear-armed powers are rare. In March of 2023, a U.S. military surveillance drone crashed into the Black Sea after being intercepted by Russian fighter jets, prompting Washington to protest and warn of the risk of an escalation. Now, Venezuelan leader Maduro was the second close ally of Russia to be ousted in just over a year, following the toppling of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad in December of 2024. Russia has said that it backs Delcy Rodriguez, who was sworn in Monday as interim president, and will continue to support Venezuela in the face of what Moscow has called blatant neo-colonization or blatant neo-colonial threats and foreign armed aggression. So with Russians in the midst, okay, them still being in the midst of an extended New Year holiday period, Putin has yet to comment publicly on the U.S. action to remove Maduro. Because remember, their foreign ministry came and spoke about it, but not Putin. But what I will say is, according to reports, Russia is furious about the U.S. seizing the Russian-flagged oil tanker Monera, previously known as Bella One. Okay, and they say they're absolutely furious. And this is all just a hot mess. Now they say Moscow has strongly condemned the seizure, calling it a violation of international maritime law. And the Russian Transport Ministry and lawmakers have insisted freedom of navigation must be respected and demanded decent treatment and the return of the Russian crew. Official Russian language about the U.S. action is angry and highly critical, which is the closest equivalent in diplomatic terms to saying that a rival state has behaved aggressively or illegally. Okay, do you all hear this? This is all serious business. Trump is doing too much. Now, here's the thing. I still believe that Putin told his men to stand down so that Trump and his minions could go, or Trump could send his minions in there to, well, not his minions, but send the soldiers in there to abduct Maduro and his wife. But with that being said, this right here doesn't surprise me, because I was wondering, I said, now, would Trump stab Putin in the back? Of course he would. Okay, of course he would, so he can have everything for himself. All right, he's a whole egomaniac. And I find it also interesting. Now let's go to this report from NBC. Hey, likes up, everyone, please like and share.
Coast of Venezuela, the U.S. has started an operation to seize an oil tanker there. That's according to two U.S. officials. And one of those officials tells us the ship has been secured. NBC News senior national correspondent Courtney Cuby joins us now with more on this breaking story. So, Courtney, this tanker, formerly known as Bella One, recently that name changed to the Marinera. It's Russian flagged. Help us understand what that means and what you're learning about this operation.
Right. So it's and at this point, the U.S. still sees it as a stateless vessel. So they don't, at least as of this morning, they still do not acknowledge that it is a Russian flagged vessel. But you'll remember this all started over the holidays more than a week ago, when then the Bella One left Venezuela. The U.S. was enforcing this embargo or stopping or blocking ships that were leaving Venezuela that had any kind of sanctions or carrying oil, and they were seizing and interdicting these ships, primarily with the Coast Guard, usually with support of the United States military. But the Bella One evaded that. They brushed off the efforts for the U.S. to board that ship and then started making their way towards Europe. Since then, the U.S. has essentially been in pursuit of that tanker. There are reports that Russian naval assets have also joined in and have been essentially escorting that ship. We've been watching now as the U.S. has been pursuing it. Now, officials telling us that they began planning for an operation to actually seize it now that it's in European waters. And in fact, that did occur this morning. One of those officials saying the U.S. seized the Bella One, that it was a mission that was led by the Department of Homeland Security in support or with support of the United States military, the Department of Defense, and that the Department of Homeland Security actually has the lead. Now, guys, what that pretty much means is that there was Coast Guard involvement. That's what we've seen in these other seizures. Remember, the Coast Guard falls under DHS. And that at this point, there are now U.S. law enforcement officials who are on board of that ship, Joe.
You mentioned those reports that Russia's been escorting this ship. That raises the question, first of all, certainly this will raise tensions between Moscow and Washington. But do we have any idea if there were any incidents, any tensions, any shots fired during this operation?
Yeah, we have no indication of that at this point, but that's one of the questions we're asking. I mean, this has literally just been unfolding in the last hour or two, that this interdiction and seizure occurred. Remember that the past several ships that the U.S. has done this since they began this. I mean, essentially what is a naval blockade or oil blockade from Venezuela. They have been done without any kind of real incident. The Coast Guard who are used for this are these elite forces who are very highly trained, specially trained for these sort of dangerous boardings like this. So this is literally what they're trained to do. The U.S. military, so far, we don't know the details of this mission yet today, but so far they've been involved essentially in just bringing the Coast Guard to the ship. So you'll remember that in one of the cases, we saw helicopters bringing men who were in fatigues. They were, heavily kitted up with gear, large weapons. They were U.S. Navy helicopters that actually brought them to the ship. But those were actually Coast Guard, elite Coast Guard forces who did the boarding there, and then in conjunction with law enforcement officials who came on board and were essentially taking over that ship. In some cases, they brought them back to the United States. It's unclear what will happen here because unlike the previous seizures, interdictions and seizures that were done down in the Caribbean or closer to Venezuela, this one is now all the way in European waters. It's all the almost to Ireland, frankly, at this point. So it's not clear what will happen here. I do expect that United States European Command will have something to say about this later today because it's in their area of operations. If not, we should hear something from the Pentagon at some point today, Joe.
And with these previous oil tankers that were seized, what happened once they were seized?
Well, remember, the U.S. said that the oil now, well, the Trump administration said that the oil now belongs to the United States. So presumably that will happen here. The big difference in this one is, as we said, the Bella One, they didn't take the boarding. They rejected it, they rebuffed it, and they kept moving for now days. They've been sailing east towards Europe. The other big difference here is the owner. This is, as you mentioned, a Russian flagged ship. The United States doesn't recognize that, or they haven't up to this point. So it's not clear if that's going to be a factor here or not. That there's a Russian involvement here. We know that the Russians did not want the United States to interdict this shipment, so that could play a big part in what happens to this oil as well. It's hard to imagine the U.S. bringing the tanker all the way back across the Atlantic to the United States, but that's what we saw happen with a previous one where they brought it from the Caribbean up to Texas, and the U.S. now has control of that oil.
All right, lots of questions. Courtney Cubey will let you get back to your reporting. Thanks so much for joining.
Mhm. What a whole lot of BS Trump is getting the United States into. Also of note is the fact that he claims, being the bully that he is, that Venezuela is going to have to turn over 30 to 50 million barrels of sanctioned oil to the U.S. President Donald Trump said Venezuelan authorities will be turning over between 30 and 50 million barrels of sanctioned oil to the United States after his administration captured the country's president and began pressuring for new leadership. Trump says this oil will be sold at its market price, and that money will be controlled by me. Do y'all hear this? I want y'all to hear this. I want y'all to hear this. Trump said, and I quote, "This oil will be sold at its market price, and that money will be controlled by me as President of the United States of America to ensure it is used to benefit the people of Venezuela and the United States." That's what he said on a Truth Social post yesterday. The U.S. captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in an extraordinary military operation on January 3rd, bringing him to New York City to face drug trafficking charges. Maduro pleaded not guilty in federal court on January the 5th. Delcy Rodriguez, who served as Maduro's vice president, has been sworn in as the country's interim president. Trump has focused on Venezuela's oil resources in the aftermath of the U.S. military operations. Now, in a speech after Maduro was captured, Trump said Venezuela stole American oil, a claim some international energy law experts refute. I'm sorry, when did they steal our oil? When did they steal our oil? This is all so nefarious. So this man is insane. Absolutely. Okay, I couldn't agree more. Edwards says U.S. been stealing oil from Syria for years. No doubt about it. Okay, this is all crazy, but let's continue. And so anyway, they say that legal experts refute this whole thing. He says, we built Venezuela. This is Trump once again. He says, we built Venezuela's oil industry with American talent, our drive and skill. And the socialist regime stole it from us during those previous administrations, and they stole it through force. This constituted one of the largest thefts of American property in the history of our country. Do you all hear how Trump just makes up stuff? Do you all hear how this man just says whatever? Okay, absolutely. Cannot believe it sometimes, even though it should be so obvious that he's just a whole idiot. But the stuff that he makes up, he said the greatest theft in U.S. history. Sorry, that would be Venezuela stealing our oil. Because I could have thought, now this is just me, I could have thought, or should I say, I would have thought that the largest theft in the U.S. history was the robbery. Okay, the Dunbar robbery in 1997. Y'all remember? I think I talked about that on the crime channel that I used to do. Okay. That's what I think. And then I would think that, and that's when they took $18.9 million in cash. It was the Dunbar Armored Depot robbery. And then the 1975 bonded vault heist, where they took $30 million in valuables. So Trump, please sit down, sir. I'm sure this is not even mentioned anywhere in our history, okay? Because you just made it up. Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world and once had multiple American oil companies operating there. But Chevron is the only major U.S. oil company still there after former leader Hugo Chavez pushed to nationalize the country's oil industry. This is what Trump told NBC on January the 5th, that it could take less than 18 months to revive Venezuelan oil production, with the U.S. potentially reimbursing American oil companies for their investment. Do you all hear this? A tremendous amount of money will have to be spent, and the oil companies will spend it, and then they'll get reimbursed by the U.S. or through revenue, Trump says. In his January the 6th announcement, Trump said Venezuelan oil will be taken by storage ships and brought directly to unloading docks into the United States. Wow. So I find it all interesting. I find it all interesting. Hold on, beloveds. Let me just see something here. Trump is just a... And here's the thing. Now, even though I knew Trump made this all up and was clearly lying, okay, because I've never heard this before. And I consider myself to be a historian, okay? I feel like I know a lot about the history, specifically of the United States. History in general, but specifically United States. So here's what it says. Okay, I typed in, did Venezuela ever steal the U.S.'s oil? And quite frankly, it says no. The government of Venezuela did not steal the United States' oil. The claims stem from the naturalization of the Venezuelan oil industry in the 1970s and 2000s, where the Venezuelan state assumed control of its own natural resources and assets previously operated by foreign companies, including those from the U.S. Okay, now don't get mad because these people started, decided to take over their own oil industry. Okay? Anywho. Mel says Trump's whole administration cannot be trusted. They're all compulsive liars. Beloved, I beg to differ. They're not compulsive liars. They're pathological liars. Okay? They're pathological liars. Specifically Trump. That's what he definitely is. They're worse. They're beyond compulsive. Okay, now let's go to this report from CBS. U.S. military seizes multiple oil tankers linked to Venezuela, according to officials. I guess Trump says he wants all the smoke. Well, guess what? Sooner than later, he just might get it.
Breaking news, the United States seizing multiple oil tankers linked to Venezuela. U.S. officials confirm the military seized the oil tanker formerly known as Bella 1 for violations of U.S. sanctions. Now, this comes after a weeks-long pursuit. And the U.S. has also seized a second oil tanker this morning, the Sophia. U.S. Southern Command posted this video of the seizure.
I want to bring in CBS News senior national security correspondent Charlie D'Agata, who's here with some more information. So, Charlie, not just one, we had the breaking news this morning that there was one that was in the United States was in pursuit of. Now we learned that there's another ship that has been recently seized.
Yeah, so we have to paint the picture of where we are geographically. That second ship that we heard about, the Sophia, that was seized in the Caribbean, that Southern Command area of responsibility. And that is where essentially the blockade has been going on around Venezuela. The first ship that was seized, as you said, the United States, and we, for that matter, have been tracking this ship for a couple of weeks. The U.S. tried to interdict December 21st to try to get that. Then it was flying under Bella 1. Not a Russian tag, a flag, Guyana. Now, as it has been seized, it is sailing under a Russian flag now. That one, so it has been tracked, and it was tracked from Southern Command in that Caribbean area to where it is now, which is in the North Atlantic, somewhere off the coast of between the UK and Iceland. So that would have been European Command. So that's where European Command made that announcement, honestly, within the last hour, confirming the reports that we had already been tracking, that ship that they had been tracking now for weeks, it had evaded that, if you want to call it a blockade, some people call it that, others call it something else, evaded that blockade in the Caribbean region and got out to the North Atlantic, but it had been tracked all the way. And there have been reports, some of those open source intelligence reports, that there have been U.S. spy planes that have been seen operating in the region, the P-8 Poseidon. Now, this should be routine. You know, we have U.S. bases inside the UK or joint bases with the UK. So to see a sort of flurry of activity with C-17 cargo Globemasters, cargo ships, and then the Poseidon, they're also called submarine hunters. That is an Overwatch situation, because the Russians had said that they were scrambling a couple of warships, including a submarine, in order to escort that the ship, formerly the Bella, now the Marinera, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, because it's not Marinera, it's Marinera, under that Russian flag. So they sent ships to escort that, but we know from U.S. sources that no U.S. forces were injured, and there was no gunfire in interdicting that ship.
Okay. Okay, so Desmond says, Queen, just sent you the story of ICE shooting in Minnesota. Okay, good. Okay, thank you for that. Hold on, let me go to the next clip. Listen, here's the thing. Maduro is not a good person. I believe, what his own people say about him. I absolutely believe that he deserves to be taken out of power and likely put in prison, as well as Delcy Rodriguez, because she was the vice president. She's just as nefarious as he is, because whatever crimes he was doing, she was complicit in them. That is a fact. So, for her to be in power, that's, after he's in jail, that's still not good. Okay, that's still not good. But the bottom line is the way Trump went about all of this is just chaotic, and it's just not a good idea, because now, you open the door, like I told you all yesterday, for Putin to be sitting there saying, oh, well, let me just go over here and kidnap Zelensky, or China. Let me just go over here and just, take over Taiwan. These are things that could all stem from that, not to mention all of these people turning against the United States. Even our NATO allies are pissed. We're going to talk about that also, but let's go to this next clip, okay? And then we're going to talk about ICE and Minnesota, because at the end of the day, there's a whole war that Donald Trump has seemingly declared on Tim Walz. Trump is so low down and dirty. Dan says, good reporting, Queen. Thank you, beloved. I appreciate you. Okay, here we go.
News this lunchtime, and ITV News understands that US forces are attempting to board a Russian-flagged oil tanker in the North Atlantic between Scotland and Iceland. The tanker was reportedly bound for Venezuela. Our political correspondent Carl Dylan joins me now from Westminster at this early stage. Carl, what can you tell us?
Well, as you say, Nina, we understand that this operation is underway. This vessel, the Marinera, had attempted, it seems, to get to Venezuela, but possibly had turned back due to the US blockade and was north of Scotland. Russian media are also reporting that the operation is underway and even have a photograph of what appears to be a US Special Forces Little Bird helicopter close to the ship. I mean, if a little helicopter like that is out there, it means US ships are probably not far away as well. We're also getting reports now from the United States that the vessel may already have been seized. The significance of this is that this vessel reflagged itself as a Russian vessel recently, and there were even reports that Russian naval assets, like a submarine, may have been on their way to try and protect it. So this could be a direct confrontation between the United States and Russia on some level, albeit this was not a Russian naval vessel, and this vessel had previously not been Russian and had already been sanctioned by the United States.
I know one thing. They better hope they haven't injured any of those Russians aboard that ship. Okay, that's what they better be hoping. Now, let's go to this ICE shooting in Minnesota because they're filming this live. Likes up, everyone, please like and share.
ICE agents where a person was shot, and now we can confirm through ICE that person is deceased.
Corin, if we still have you here, I know you've been covering, obviously, this over the last couple of days and last couple of weeks as politicians and city officials have been talking about knowing this was probably coming our way and the presence of ICE. And nearly every politician has talked about, even the police chief talking about, this was their worst fear, that things were going to escalate. From the governor's office all the way down to city council members, and I know you've talked to many of them, and this is what they were fearing potentially would happen. Not necessarily this exact situation, but just that things would escalate so much to this.
Absolutely, and that I've heard them every time focus on this as the worst case scenario, whether it was an observer or an innocent bystander, completely innocent bystander, or an ICE agent being the one killed, that this is what the net result could be of an ICE surge where, everywhere they go, they are a flashpoint. That's true when they were in DC, when they were in LA, when they were in Chicago, etc. And this is what they worried would happen. And, like I said, it's a flashpoint. Everywhere they go, there are folks who support them and there are folks who don't. And the folks who don't, a lot of them have trained to be constitutional observers so that they are not violating any state or federal laws as they come out and protest. But, not every protester is trained, and even trained protesters sometimes will go beyond the lines. And so that is something that everybody was worried about. And that is, apparently, the death, at least, is confirmed now through ICE. And so that, here we are in the worst case scenario. And, we're not at the end of this operation either. And so that could, this may just be the first of more. So that is something that I'm sure Mayor Fry will be focused on as he and Chief O'Hara give their statement here in about 30 minutes.
Corin, in the background behind you, we can certainly hear there's still some shouting, people maybe with bullhorns and that type of thing, the protests continuing. But from what you've been able to observe, does it look like it's now the bailiwick of Minneapolis police, Hennepin County? Those are the folks who are by and large kind of controlling that area, and ICE has now moved out. Is that what you're kind of observing, or do you still see some ICE agents?
Yeah, Tom, where I'm standing on 33rd and Portland, I only see Minneapolis police officers. Let me walk away for a second. Yeah, there are still some ICE vehicles here. That doesn't mean there are agents here. I can see some of their vehicles still here. That doesn't mean that they haven't left. Those may be, the
Part of the crime scene, right? We're losing Corn's
of the
microphone.
crime scene, possibly.
There we go. You're back.
You're fine. I got it now. Okay, it's back. Yeah.
Having some issues again. We will work on that as you are looking at live pictures again here, kind of two different areas of the scene. The smaller box you're looking at is the area that has the cars that appear to be involved in this now deadly ICE-related shooting. There's a black car, a white car, and a red car. We've been hearing a lot about the red car. According to witnesses, it was this victim who was in the red car involved in this situation. And then obviously the bigger picture you see just down the road, a larger gathering of folks there at Portland and 34th.
We were told by, we at least heard from the witness, Aiden, who Corn spoke with, that it was the vehicle you see just beyond the police vehicle there and the white car, a kind of maroon colored Honda Pilot. That's believed to be the vehicle that this person, this constitutional observer, was in. And as ICE, in their account, we have a statement from ICE. We'll put that up for you and show you exactly what they said again.
So this just coming in, and this is our first.
Did you know that you can have permanent teeth in just 24 hours? That's right. And with affordable payment on
ICE saying today ICE officers in Minneapolis were conducting targeted operations when rioters began blocking ICE officers, and one of those violent rioters weaponized her vehicle, attempting to run over our law enforcement officers in an attempt to kill them, an act of domestic terrorism. An ICE officer, fearing for his life and the lives of his fellow law enforcement and the safety of the public, fired defensive shots. He used his training and saved his own life and that of his fellow officers. Statement goes on to say the alleged perpetrator was hit and is deceased. Thankfully, the ICE officers who were hurt are expected to make a full recovery. This is the direct consequence of constant attacks and demonization of our officers by sanctuary politicians who fuel and encourage rampant assaults on our law enforcement, who are facing 1,300% increase in assaults against them and an 8,000% increase in death threats. This is an evolving situation. We will give the public more information as soon as it becomes available. Again, that is the statement coming to us from ICE.
And we know, Corin, you're chatting with us right now in a fixed location. Are they allowing media to move around the area? Are you being restricted in any way from getting to where you need to be to cover the story?
Well, no, I'm not being restricted in any way more than, the general public is. So, the streets are blocked off here.
Okay, so I may go back to that, but we're going to move on. Songwriter Sonny said they wanted to prove that the white man's ice is colder. Okay, y'all have jokes. Y'all have jokes. Now, with that all being said, tragically, someone lost their life. Now, was that woman actually trying to use her vehicle as a weapon? I don't know, honey, because I don't believe anything these people say. Okay, ICE be out here lying just like the rest of Trump's minions. So I don't know. I guess we will have to stay tuned and then, come up with our own assessment. All right. So with that all being said, now let's go to Greenland and NATO. Trump is pissing off the NATO allies, honey. Let me tell you something. The U.S. is not going to have any allies left in just a hot second. Okay? European leaders blast the Trump administration over Greenland takeover discussions. This man is a whole idiot. I'm telling you, he's going to have people just coming after us. Okay? Everybody better get you a bunker. I'm kidding, but clearly Trump is pissing people off.
The White House is considering to take over Greenland. CBS News foreign correspondent Remy Inocencio joins us from our London newsroom.
Errol, yes, good morning. And the fact that President Trump has not ruled out military force to take Greenland is edging NATO towards the previously unthinkable in its nearly 8-decade history. This is the possibility that one NATO member, here the United States, could start a conflict with another NATO member, here Denmark. And remember, Article 5 is part of the NATO military alliance agreement. This is the often talked about mutual defense clause that basically says an attack on one of us is an attack against all of us. And several European governments are now pushing back against President Trump and his advisor, Stephen Miller. The leaders of the United Kingdom, of France, Germany, Italy, Poland, Spain have now joined Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen and issued a joint statement of solidarity, a warning to the Trump administration that Greenland belongs to its people. It's for Denmark and Greenland and them only to decide on matters concerning Denmark and Greenland. Now, Greenland's Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen says there is no basis for a takeover and there is no world in which the U.S. can simply conquer Greenland. Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney is also joining in, and he is dispatching his Governor General, who is of Inuk descent and shared Arctic Inuit heritage with Greenland, along with his foreign minister early next month. But again, this is devolving into an existential crisis for NATO with these statements, these threats, as many European governments are seeing them, from the Trump White House. And Denmark's prime minister says that it would signal the end of the NATO military alliance, which frankly, Errol, adversaries around the world, Russia and China, would probably be very happy to see.
All right, Ramy, thank you very much. For more on the options the White House is considering to take over.
Do you all hear this? Do you all hear this? I find this absolutely egregious. Okay? I find it absolutely egregious. Like Trump has really lost his darn mind. Now, with that all being said, let's go to this next report, okay? They say Russia has accused Washington of violating maritime law after the U.S. military seized a Russian-flagged Venezuela-linked oil tanker in the Atlantic Ocean. Russia has reportedly sent its Navy to escort the tanker, which the U.S. says violated sanctions. The U.S. also says it has seized a second stateless oil tanker that it accuses of operating as part of Venezuela's dark fleet. Okay, they were saying earlier it was a shadow fleet. Okay, now the White House has said that the Trump administration officials are discussing the possible purchase of Greenland, something that Denmark has flatly rejected, but added that all options remain on the table. All options are always on the table for President Trump. This is what Caroline Leavitt said, adding that the president's first option always has been diplomacy. Continued U.S. resistance that it will take control of Greenland, despite loud protests from Denmark and other European allies, has prompted some European leaders to contemplate just how they might. Hold on, these pop-ups, beloved. Hold on. Okay, here we go. I'm like, what's going on here? Okay, so has prompted some European leaders to contemplate how they might respond if the U.S. were to launch a military attack to seize the self-governed Danish territory. See, that's what I want you all to pay attention to. So now these people are plotting. Okay, they're making plans on what they're going to do if Trump continues. Okay, now continuing his remarks, Rubio says U.S. has tremendous control over Venezuela's new authorities. Okay, continuing his remarks to Press Secretary of State, Rubio said the U.S.'s enforcement of an embargo on Venezuelan oil gives major leverage over the country's new government. We have tremendous control and leverage over over what those interim authorities are able to do. This is what Rubio said, saying that the U.S. is top diplomat. Okay, but obviously this will be a process of transition, and it will be up to the Venezuelan people to transform their country. Rubio went on to say the U.S. intervention in Venezuela isn't going to cost us any money. On the contrary. Yeah, because y'all going to go over and steal whatever you can steal, all those people's resources and oil and everything else. Okay. So the White House declines to confirm whether U.S. demanded end of Venezuelan ties with Iran, China, and Russia. When asked about a media report stating that the U.S. has demanded that the interim government of Venezuela sever ties with countries such as China, Russia, and Iran as a condition of resuming their oil production, Levitt declined to confirm the report, but said that the Trump administration had emphasized U.S. dominance of the Western Hemisphere. So he wants to take over the whole hemisphere. Okay, I want you all to pay attention. And then with that all being said, trying to tell Venezuela who they can be tied to as allies, like this is all crazy. I'm not going to confirm or deny or get into what the secretary has said in classified settings to members of Congress. That's what Levitt said. See, they always play these little games with semantics. Whenever they're asked something they don't want to divulge, they'll always use that. Oh, I'm not going to get into that discussion here publicly. Oh, I'm not going to talk about that, a private conversation and all of that. Okay. But I think that the administration has made it quite clear to the interim authorities in Venezuela that this is the Western Hemisphere and American dominance is going to continue under this president. This is what they said, honey. I can already tell y'all what's going to happen to Trump. I can see it coming. Now, as international condemnation against the U.S. military operation continues to roll in, Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth has said the Trump administration has sent a message that is resonating. Speaking from Capitol Hill, he told reporters the world is taking notice of what he described as the advanced level of sophistication of U.S. actions. They think they are so big and bad right now. The power has gone to their heads. Okay, the power has clearly gone to their heads. That's right, Danielle said world domination. That is what these devils are up to. Pray that they never get it, okay? Now, with that all being said, Hegseth said recent days have shown that the president, when he speaks, he means it. He's not messing around. Listen to the tough talk. Yesterday, what's his name? Stephen Miller said, damn straight we did. Remember that? Trump said, the president of Colombia needs to watch his ass. And now, and also Pete Hegseth said days ago, they're going to F around and find out. Listen to the tough talk. They're talking like thugs in the streets. They're not talking to like, political officials or the leaders of this country. These people are talking like there's some thugs out here in the streets. And now he's talking about he's not messing around. When he speaks, he means it. We're an administration of action to advance our interest, and that is on full display. I mean, a whole lot of tough talk. Okay? Now, Levitt says Marinara crew could be brought to U.S. for prosecution. Oh, my Lord. Do you all hear this? Do you all hear this? They have lost their damn minds. They're talking about bringing Putin's people here that were on that damn ship for prosecution. What the hell do they think Putin's going to do? Honey, it's about to get real ugly. I'm moving to Costa Rica, just so y'all know. Now, when asked about Russia's call to release the crew of the seized Marinara vessel, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said that the Russian-flagged oil tanker was transporting sanctioned oil and that there was a judicial seizure order against the crew, saying this was a Venezuelan shadow fleet vessel that has transported sanctioned oil. And the United States of America under this president is not going to tolerate that. Now, here's something else I want you all to pay attention to. How they refer to Trump as this president, not by this president, not under this president. This president's not taking it. Do y'all hear this? Do y'all hear this? To them, Trump is larger than life, and they do want world dominion. And all of them are using the same nefarious talking points. Okay? So, Sister says, sounds like the mafia to me, and in fact, it is. They are a whole crime mob at this point. This is all crazy. War is here. Y'all remember 9/11 says Buckhorst, D.C. Okay, Mel says Trump is starting a lot of unnecessary drama. Facts. Edward says USA has ruled the Western Hemisphere since the Spanish-American War. This is all crazy. Danielle says Minister Farrakhan has been the Black community for years. You mean been warning the Black community for years, right? To not join the military and to get out of the military. Exactly. Mel said Trump is a coward. He's hiding behind the military. Ooh, honey, this is all nefarious. But let's continue. So she said this president's not going to have it. That's what she basically said. Or he won't tolerate it. Now, mind you, legal experts have raised doubts about whether the U.S. has the authority to act against other countries in international waters in order to enforce sanctions. But international law has thus far done little to restrain the Trump administration's actions. Levitt added that the crew of the Marinera could face legal action in the U.S., saying that the crew is now subject to prosecution for any applicable violation of federal law, and they will be brought to the United States for such prosecution if necessary, she says. Okay, but meanwhile, experts warn Trump's escalation might bring further economic slowdown. And see, this is what I told you all. This is what I told you all. When people were saying, oh, but we shouldn't be worried about Venezuela. Yes, the hell we should. We should always be worried when the U.S. declares war on another nation. We should always be concerned about the ramifications, especially when they go in and kidnap a whole president illegally, mind you. All kinds of conflict and mayhem arise from these things, and especially also it affects our economy. Okay, now they say there is growing uncertainty about whether we're entering a phase of greater conflict between the United States and major actors such as Russia, the European Union, and China, as well as regional neighbors like Cuba and Mexico. This is what Mark Jones, a professor of political science at Rice University, said. Now, Venezuela accounts for only 1% of the global oil output. Still, Jones said it remains unclear what the administration of President Trump's long-term plan is, spurring concern in the market. They say conflicts could lead to a global recession or at least a slowdown in the global economy, which would be a negative outcome for energy companies. Oil company stocks appear to be on the edge, with ExxonMobil shares down 1.2% and ConocoPhillips down 1.1% in midday trading. Now, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has outlined a three-stage U.S. plan for Venezuela following Maduro's abduction, focusing on stabilization, recovery, and transition. Speaking to reporters in Washington, D.C., Rubio reiterated Trump's plan to take 30 million to 50 million barrels of Venezuelan oil, sell it at market rates during phase one, saying that money will then be handled in such a way that we will control how it's dispersed, in a way that benefits the Venezuelan people, not corruption. Now, the second phase will involve opening up Venezuela's economy to Western firms and a process of national reconciliation, with opposition figures amnestied and freed to return to the country. He did not go into detail about the third phase, which he termed the transition, saying we'll have more details in the days to follow, but we feel we're moving forward here in a very positive way. Meanwhile, White House Press Secretary Carolyn Levitt said the U.S. will be in control of the sale of Venezuelan oil and that the proceeds will be placed in an account that they oversee, mirroring comments from Energy Secretary Chris Wright earlier today. All proceeds from the sale of Venezuelan crude oil and products will first settle in U.S.-controlled accounts at globally recognized banks to guarantee the legitimacy and integrity of the ultimate distribution of proceeds. Do you all think all this money is going to go where it needs to go? You don't think Trump's going to be stealing this money? Of course he is. Okay, Mel said Trump needs to stop stealing. It's bad enough he's stealing our hard-earned working money. Exactly. Okay, I want y'all to pay attention. Now, goes on to say, and those funds will be dispersed for the benefit of the American people and the Venezuelan people at the discretion of the United States government, please. Okay, Levitt added that the U.S. will selectively roll back sanctions on Venezuelan oil to facilitate such sales on the global market. Ooh, honey, this is all crazy. Okay, Black Jesus, please fix it. Please fix it. Now, with that all being said, let's talk about Minnesota, because Tim Walz says that basically they've declared war on them and they have a child care freeze and and they're blaming this all on the so-called, as they call it, the Somalian fraud. Also, I want you all to pay attention, because not only have they gone in on the Somalians, now they're going in on the Haitians. So you mean to tell me none of these black immigrants have done it? None of these white-looking immigrants have done anything nefarious? None of the white people who are CEOs of these companies are to be held accountable, other than Amy Bach? I have a whole lot of questions, because now, like I said, they're painting this narrative about the Haitians. Okay. Okay, that's exactly what they're doing. Now let's go to this report. Largest DHS operation ever underway in Minnesota. They're coming for Tim Walz, and even though Tim Walz has said that he's not going to run, Trump said that's not going to prevent him from being prosecuted or investigated to likely be prosecuted. Soul Sister said Tim Walz getting out of Dodge. Well, Trump said that's not going to help him because they're still coming.
The largest DHS operation ever is underway in Minnesota. Thousands of federal agents are in the state for the crackdown, started in part to root out fraud tied to a $1 billion scandal. News Nation's Brooke Schaefer has been following this story for us from the beginning. And Brooke, what has come out of this whole operation so far?
Marky, DHS told us they've already arrested more than 1,000 people believed to be in Minnesota and the U.S. illegally. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem posted this video of one of the arrests in Minneapolis. She tagged along with federal agents in the Twin Cities on Tuesday. DHS says the man they arrested here had an active warrant for murder and sexual assault in Ecuador. Noem joined some of the 2,000 federal immigration officials sent to the state in light of recent welfare fraud claims there, which has led the Trump administration to just yesterday cut off much needed federal funding for childcare in Minnesota and now 4 other Democrat-led states, too. The Health and Human Services Department says it has concerns about taxpayer dollars being misused in programs administered by those states. Back in Minnesota, the local officials, including the state's governor, Tim Walz, have criticized the move to send immigration officials to the state and say they weren't given a heads up before federal agents arrived.
The war that's being waged against Minnesota, you're seeing it. We have a ridiculous surge of apparently 2,000 people not coordinating with us that are for a show of the cameras. We are under assault like no other time in our state's history because of a petty, vile administration.
Hold on, please. Dynamic Quality says, Queen, they are lying about what happened today in Minneapolis. ICE is trying to sound like they are the victim. Apparently, the person was shot 3 to 4 times in the face. A U.S. citizen. Wow. But see, I'm not surprised. Didn't I tell you all I don't believe them? Didn't I tell you all I don't believe them, that the person tried to drive into them? I don't believe anything they say unless they have facts and proof. Is there any video evidence showing that this is what happened? I just don't believe them. This is a darn shame. Okay, this is a darn shame. With that all being said, let's continue. Prayers and condolences to the family of the victim.
Meantime, Walz took questions yesterday for the first time since announcing he is dropping his campaign and will not run for another term as Minnesota's governor. He has faced increased criticism over those allegations of rampant fraud in his state, which federal prosecutors have said could total $9 billion. Walz was defiant against those claims. He let fraud happen and accused Republicans of trying to tear down Minnesota. Meantime, also happening today, 3 Republican lawmakers from Minnesota will be on Capitol Hill testifying about the alleged fraud.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our
Okay, this is all part of Trump's nefarious plot to bring down Tim Walz just because this man was running as Kamala's VP. I want you all to pay attention at the end of the day. That's all this is about. Now, not only is he after Governor Tim Walz, but he's also after Minnesota's AG. Now, this man is in hot water because they're saying, and this is a report from shady-ass Fox News, okay, but I just want you all to hear this BS because they're saying they have a leaked audio that reveals that he was talking to some now convicted fraudsters. Okay, so what if he was talking to now convicted fraudsters? In the phone call, in the audio, he doesn't say anything fraudulent. He doesn't say anything criminal. So what does that have to do with anything? I'm sure a lot of people were talking to these convicted fraudsters. Okay, but let's get into it. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Dirty devils.
Happening today, the House Oversight Committee will hold a hearing on the widespread Minnesota fraud scandal.
So it comes as the focus shifts to the state attorney general.
Alexis McAdams joins us live from Minneapolis with the many details. Alexis. That's right. A lot of details here because really, according to prosecutors, Brian, there's just so much fraud here in the state. Now they're looking at the state's Attorney General, Keith Ellison. Why? Because the state's top cop here in Minnesota was caught in an audio recording behind closed doors meeting with a group of soon-to-be convicted Somali fraudsters. They were asking the Attorney General for help to get more funding. Listen to this.
The only way we can protect what we have is by inserting ourselves into the political arena, putting our votes where it needs to be, but most importantly, putting our dollars in the right place and supporting candidates that will fight to protect our interests.
That's right.
You can only protect our interests when we have your back, and you don't have to worry about who's behind you.
And also this group was talking about, as you heard there, supporting his campaign. So Keith Ellison is pushing back on this. He said that he takes fraud seriously. He shared in an op-ed writing this: I took a meeting in good faith with people I didn't know, and some turned out to have done some bad things. I did nothing for them, and I took nothing from them. But some of those now convicted Somali fraudsters did donate money to Ellison's campaign, according to documents obtained by the Center for the American Experiment. Ellison.
Okay, so what if they donated money to his campaign? This man may not have known that they were fraudulent. You see how they're just grasping at straws just so they can bring these people down? Like, this is all crazy. Trump is the one who's a fraud.
Reportedly later gave the money back because those people were convicted. Fox obtained the entire, pretty much almost an hour-long clip of this meeting, so there's so much in it. It's from the lawyer of this woman, Amy Bach. She was convicted in this massive Feeding Our Future scam. That's how it all started. Bach's behind bars, and her legal team says, where's the accountability for Governor Walz and the Attorney General? They knew that this was going on. He says nothing happened until the Fed stepped in.
Let me tell you all something, okay? I want you all to pay attention. Danielle called them hypocrites. Exactly, beloved. That's exactly what they are. But here's what I want you all to pay attention to. This fraud that they keep talking about with these daycares and all this stuff and Feeding the Future, this happens all over the country. Okay, this literally happens all over the country. Let me tell you something. A lot of these daycares all around this country don't have the amount of students that they claim. And that goes for the ones run with people who look like Trump as well. Okay, like I keep telling you all, how many of the CEOs running these countries are there or are white people? Hold on. How many? Hold on. I'm about to look it up. Percentage of white CEOs in America. 70 to 76%. Okay? That's where the fraud is coming in. You see, fraud is not determined by race and ethnicity. Fraud is determined by the companies that are engaging in it. Okay? And who's engaging in this fraud within the company is usually 9 times out of 10, always the CEOs. And 76% of them in this country don't look like me. All right? That's who they don't look like. All right? I want y'all to pay attention. Amy Bach isn't the only person, Caucasian person who's involved in this fraud, but they're demonizing the black and brown people, okay, who may have been involved.
Do you think some of these politicians should be held accountable?
I would like to see someone in the state. I don't care whether it's the governor, I don't care whether it's the attorney general, someone take responsibility.
President Trump says Tim Walz was caught, quote, red-handed for his role in the fraudulent Somali scams plaguing Minnesota for more than a decade. Governor Walz is not running for re-election. He says he's going to take accountability, but the White House says that's not going to shield you from the investigation.
I'm not going anywhere. And you can make all your requests for me to resign over my dead body. Will that happen?
Now, I want you all to pay attention to something. And sorry, I put the wrong comment up when somebody was greeting the other person. But listen, Tim Walz, can you all tell that this man looks like he's stressed the hell out? Is he sick or something? Look at all the loss of weight. Can you see how thin his face is? I think they're stressing this poor man out. And Edward said, Edward, you said something about Tim Walz. You said something negative about Tim Walz or whatever. I'm sorry. at the end of the day, I don't know anything that this man has done that's literally nefarious. I mean, if we're just going by what Trump said, that's not even proof. I don't believe anything Trump says, nor would I ever, unless I literally see the proof and receipts. Trump is the lyingest devil I've ever seen or heard of, other than Satan himself.
I will fight this thing till the very end to make this state better. And the question that I think they need to decide is when did the guy in the White House resign?
Okay, so that's his response as this ongoing fraud scandal continues. The DOJ is going to send more prosecutors here to the state, which prosecutors on the ground have already said they needed because there's just so much fraud to investigate. Also, that audio clip that we just played for you, that's going to be mentioned in today's hearing. So it's something to keep an eye on with Allison. Back to you.
All right, great job out there, Alexis. So when it comes to Attorney General, if you didn't know these people, why did you promise them that you were going to protect them? Why did you take a meeting and tell those people that? And then the second thing is happening is, so the attorney is saying, my client is not going to be the only person to go down for this. So they want the politicians now. That's what happened when you capture someone that has committed an offense. Everybody wants a deal. So they start singing. So now you're going to have the criminals that got the money. They're going to start telling us what politicians help protect them.
Yeah, they are. And some of those politicians were Republicans, and I can't wait to find out. Okay, now with that all being said, right, Queen, when they first reported on this, there were 2 white girls as CEO and involved in the fraud, but I hadn't seen that again since it has just been Somali fraud. And that's what I'm talking about, beloved. Okay, now they just mentioned in this report, they just mentioned Amy Bach. And they said she's in jail. Is she in jail? Because I could have sworn last week when I looked it up, they said she had not been sentenced yet. Let me just look this up again. And I showed you all the receipts. Let me look that up real quick. She has not yet been sentenced. Hold on. Hold on, beloveds. Okay, I'm going straight to the DOJ's website. Federal jury finds Feeding Our Future mastermind and co-defendant guilty in $250 million pandemic fraud scheme. Okay, they say that she has been found guilty. That money did not go to feed the kids. Instead, it was used to fund their lavish lifestyles. Today's verdict sends a message to the community that fraud against the government will not be tolerated. Okay, well, she has been found guilty as of this was published March 19th of 2025. I think I told you all this already, but she has not been sentenced. She's in jail awaiting her sentencing likely. But the thing is, the other people have already been sentenced. I wonder what's the hold up on hers. And they don't even say when she's going to be sentenced. So I have several questions, but yeah, she was the head of it. And with these other fraudulent stories they're talking about, I'm pretty sure people who look like her were the masterminds of that too. Okay, these people are immigrants. They couldn't have done this by themselves. You know why? Because they're not the CEOs of these businesses or these programs, shall I say.
So the U.S. Attorney in Minnesota said the scope of this fraud could exceed maybe $1 billion and could go as high as $9 billion. That's taxpayer money that criminals scammed the system, and they used that money, according to people involved. They pleaded guilty to using the money for luxury cars, for real estate, for jewelry, for vacations, taxpayer dollars. And then you have the governor who says he's not going to run again, but the governor is complaining about ICE arrests, saying they're unreasonable and an unreasonable use of taxpayer dollars. So hypocritical. Listen to this. He says ridiculous. Nobody is fooled into thinking this buffoonery is a reasonable use of taxpayer dollars. It should not take 50 ICE agents to arrest a guy in a library.
You're insane. When you are a sanctuary city, you're telling your cops you can't help anyone. So you have to make sure that you put thousands of people on the streets because you get no help for local law enforcement. So they have about 2,000, more than any other city, 2,000 on the streets. They've already made over 1,000 arrests, and they found some wanted criminals along the way. So so after they came out with a statement calling basically ICE agents and their actions buffoonery, we put that question to ICE Director Todd Lyons.
Not only is obviously we're focused on the fraud, right? But the mayor's right. There is a lot of work for us to do, and it's the fraud of immigration enforcement. So we have so many people that are in Minnesota right now that have violated immigration law by falsely claiming asylum, lying on their refugee status. There are so many individuals, not only Minnesota, across the United States, but we're focused on Minnesota because there's such a draw, because these individuals can go to these sanctuary jurisdictions and just hide in plain sight and get the support they need from elected officials. So we are going to focus on that. We are focusing on the people of Minnesota. We're going to make sure that the people who aren't supposed to be in Minnesota are no longer in Minnesota.
And they've already arrested over 90 individuals, many of them of Somali descent, the majority of them of Somali descent. The second thing I would say is the governor, ICE would not have to use 50 agents for one person if you guys and your people in your party weren't doxing them and there wasn't assassinating threats and the assaults against them didn't raise over 1,000%.
If local law enforcement, if they had the go-ahead by the governor to work with ICE.
That's right.
Yeah. I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the
Okay. Now, with that all being said, I want you all to pay attention. I want you all to pay attention how they keep talking about it was mostly Somalians, and then they call it the Somalian fraud and all this, that, and the third. What's interesting is that when they had Merrill Lynch, when Merrill Lynch got taken down for the fraud they were doing, when that got exposed, the phishing and scams and all that stuff and the schemes, those people were white men. James Ryan Lanier, Jeffrey T. Kluge, Marcus Boggs, okay? And others. These people were white men. Did they call it Caucasian fraud? Did they call it the white man's fraud? Did they say the Caucasian community or the white people's fraud? No, they didn't. They call it Merrill Lynch fraudsters. That's what they called it. Merrill Lynch fraudsters. Because they always blame the company and the CEOs. Okay? At the end of the day, this is all just for them to demonize dark people. That's all it is. Now, anyway, with that all being said, let's continue. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Now we have Mark Kelly going in on Pete Hegseth. Hold on. Before we get to that, let's talk about Lindsay Halligan, because I told you all this stupid lady was going to lose her license, her and Pam Bondi, okay, just as soon as Trump's out of the picture. Now, he may try to pardon them in case they could face future charges or whatever, but that's not going to have a damn thing to do with them losing those licenses. Let's get into it, because Lindsay Halligan, a judge has just ordered her to explain why she's still trying to serve as U.S. attorney after a previous ruling against her. If you all remember, I reported to you how Judge Curry said that she was not qualified. Okay, she was disqualified, but yet she's still calling herself the U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. And they're upset because they say this is tainting cases where there's actual criminals involved. Okay, we're not talking about the trumped up charges that they had on Letitia James and James Comey. But in fact, real criminals and real charges are being tainted because of her. All right, Buckhorst DC says, shaking my damn head, Queen. Your warning was real. Okay, thank you, beloved. I appreciate you. Thanks for your insight to the topic and your contribution to the channel. Peace, love, and blessings. Now, here's what they say. A federal judge Tuesday ordered Trump ally Lindsay Halligan to explain why she continues to call herself the U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, even though another judge determined in November that she had been unlawfully appointed to the position. Okay, now U.S. District Judge David Novak of Richmond issued a 3-page order demanding to know why Halligan is still serving in the post. Halligan, who unsuccessfully prosecuted former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James, is also referred to as U.S. Attorney by the Justice Department in official documents. Now, the judge's order is unusual because he issued it on his own. not at the request of defense attorneys. The judge just did this himself. Defense didn't even have to say anything. It came in a case involving a carjacking and attempted bank robbery suspect who was indicted just last month. Now, Novak gave Halligan 7 days to respond in writing and explain the basis for identification of herself as the United States attorney, notwithstanding Judge Curry's contrary ruling. She shall also set forth the reasons why this court should not strike Ms. Halligan's identification of herself as United States attorney from the indictment in this matter. The judge's orders go on to say Halligan shall further explain why her identification does not constitute a false or misleading statement. Novak also alluded to potential disciplinary action and demanded that Halligan sign her response. Now, the U.S. Attorney's Office did not immediately respond to a request for comment on Tuesday night. In late November, U.S. District Judge Cameron McGowan Curry found that the Justice Department had violated the Constitution by even appointing Halligan as U.S. attorney. That finding led to the dismissal of criminal cases against James Comey and Letitia James. Curry ruled that all actions following from Ms. Halligan's defective appointment, including securing and signing Mr. Comey's indictment, were in fact unlawful exercises of executive power. She issued a separate similar ruling in the James Comey case, saying that Halligan had exercised power that she did not even lawfully possess. Novak acknowledged Tuesday that the November ruling regarding Halligan's appointment had been appealed, but said that since the order had not been paused, it remains the binding precedent of the district and is not subject to being ignored. Okay, she's clearly ignoring the rules. All right, just like her master Trump. Okay, just like Trump. Now, other judges in the district have previously expressed their frustration with Halligan, including one who now places an asterisk next to Halligan's name on every court document, and next to it refers to Curry's ruling from November. She is going to be in so much trouble. Okay? Now, with that all being said, don't y'all find this interesting? Because I sure do. Bookhurst DC said, good luck, family. I'm Hebrew Israelite, so I'm laughing. Thank you, beloved, for your insight into the topic and your contribution to the channel. I appreciate you. Oh, and also, Mr. Elevation, thank you. Mr. Elevation has gifted the channel. Thank you for becoming a member of the Queen's channel, beloved. I appreciate you. Peace, love, and blessings. But also, Mr. Elevation has gifted 5 memberships. You all be sure to shout out Mr. Elevation. He gifted 5 memberships to the channel. Okay, and specifically, if you received one of those memberships, y'all make sure you all are thanking him. I do appreciate you, beloved. Peace, love, and blessings. Okay, now with that all being said, this is all very interesting. They say 92-year-old judge cuts Maduro's protestations of innocence short. Okay, they say that there will be a time and a place for all of this. All right. So anyway, I find this all interesting. Now let's go to what Senator Mark Kelly had to say as he rips into Stephen Miller, okay, and Pete Hegseth. I want y'all to pay attention. This is all nefarious.
Our politics lead now. Democratic Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona is refusing to back down as the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, moves to cut his military retirement pay and demote his rank. This is a punishment for Kelly's participation in that video several weeks ago where he and 5 other Democratic lawmakers with national security experience urged U.S. service members to refuse any orders that are illegal. Retired Navy Captain Senator Mark Kelly joins me now. Senator, in Hegseth's censure letter, which you call bullshit, it includes an apparent threat of criminal prosecution if you engage in any similar conduct going forward, yet you're adamant that you're going to continue to speak out. What actions are you going to take in response to what the DOD is doing right now? Are you going to sue Hegseth? What's coming next?
Well, we have options. I have attorneys. I'm not taking this lying down. We're going to, mount a defense. because this is significant. I mean, what they're trying to do to me sends a message to all these other retired members of the military, veterans, active duty service members, and just U.S. citizens that if you say something that this president or this Secretary of Defense doesn't like, they're going to come after you. They're going to try to stifle your speech. They're going to shut you up. So I'm not going to back down from these guys. And if you look closely at the censure letter, this wasn't just about that video. They go beyond this. They're looking at what I've said over months. They have things that are not accurate in there. But they also talk about how I criticize them over firing admirals and generals. I'm on the Armed Services Committee. I have oversight responsibility over Pete Hegseth. When he makes a bad decision, it's not only my right, it's my obligation.
We've heard Democrats say that the operation in Venezuela was illegal. Do you think it was illegal? And if so, should the service members who were part of that have refused to obey those orders?
So what we were talking about in the video is about a service member being given a specific order and having to make a decision about whether this is lawful or not. And this is like the reasonable person theory. What you're getting at is constitutional questions. Can a president try to do a law enforcement action on a head of state, but use 150 airplanes and the full force of the U.S. military to do that? So these are two different things. Now, Maduro is a bad guy, and it's good that he's gone. It seems like this president, because he had no plan beyond removing Maduro, has now installed Maduro's number 2 person in Delcy Rodriguez. That's what we call in the Navy fleeting up, when the executive officer becomes the commanding officer. That's the situation we have in Venezuela right now. And it's because I don't think they had a plan of what was going to come next.
Mm-hmm. Last month, CNN's K-File reported on video from 2016 of Hegseth talking about, this is back when Hegseth was skeptical of Trump and he worked for Fox. Hegseth talking about the military's obligation to reject any illegal orders. His comments were recorded at an event hosted by the Liberty Forum Silicon Valley. Here's some of that.
I do think there have to be consequences for abject war crimes. If you're doing something that is just completely unlawful and ruthless, then there is a consequence for that. That's why the military said it won't follow unlawful orders from their commander-in-chief. There's a standard, there's an ethos, there's a belief that we are above what so many things that our enemies or others would do.
Do you think there's any substantive difference between what you said and what then Fox correspondent or whatever he was, Pete Hegseth, said?
Pretty much exactly the same thing. He was a little bit more specific about it. He said it multiple times. He said it specifically about Donald Trump. We were talking about the administration in general, and that members of the military have to follow the law. It's in the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So that Pete Hegseth, 2016 Pete Hegseth, we're in agreement. But the fact that he can come after me because I said the same thing, it's the height of hypocrisy.
Yesterday, I was interviewing Stephen Miller and asked him to clarify what Trump meant when he said that he is running Venezuela. Here's part of what he had to say.
We have the United States military stationed outside the country. We set the terms and conditions. We have a complete embargo on all of their oil and their ability to do commerce. So for them to do commerce, they need our permission. For them to be able to run an economy, they need our permission. So the United States is in charge.
What do you think?
Well, does anybody believe this guy? I mean, he obviously does not. They do not have a plan. They need to have a plan. Venezuela used to be a democracy, right? And we should be at this point making efforts to help them get back to a democracy, to have a democratically elected government running Venezuela. We do not want to be in the business of running, this other country. And by the way, regime change generally has not worked out well for us. Look at South Vietnam, Cuba, Libya, Iraq, Afghanistan. It usually does not go the way that we hope, and it often puts service members in serious harm's way.
Democratic Senator Mark Kelly.
All right, and he's absolutely right. Okay, it's all factual. Now listen to this, because Trump is just getting ahead of himself. Now he's already, mind you, made plans to meet with oil execs about Venezuela on Friday. Oil companies will be looking for security guarantees and have questions about an election which restores a government that respects the rule of law. This is what a person familiar with the gathering said. Now, President Donald Trump and members of his cabinet will meet with oil company chief executives Friday at the White House to discuss plans for them to enter Venezuela and drill. 4 people familiar have given this information. Besides Trump, the meeting would include Energy Secretary Chris Wright, Interim Secretary Doug Burgum. Okay, this is what a person familiar with the situation said. Okay, and they plan, or they say the person was granted anonymity to discuss the scheduled event before a White House announcement. Now, Wright is in Miami at an energy investor conference where he's expected to meet with oil execs. Now, mind you, Trump's planning all of this behind Congress's back. Okay, he didn't go to Congress first. The people, which he should have, if you ask me. The people who took to Politico would not confirm which companies would attend Friday's meeting. Now, the White House gathering would be a significant step toward fulfilling Trump's desire to have oil companies revitalize Venezuela's moribund crude production. Now, the industry overall has so far blanched at the idea of spending billions of dollars to drill in a politically unstable country where the economy has been in a free-for-all for 2 decades, but is floating ideas for what guarantees the government could make to entice its return. Now, one form of reassurance of stability for the industry could include a timeline for restoring a democratically elected government to Caracas, something that so far has not ranked high among Trump's stated priorities. They say oil companies will be looking for security guarantees. They would also want a political timeline from the White House. Okay, what is the expectation here of when will there be a transition to an election which restores a government that respects the rule of law and will not be seizing American assets? That's the question. The White House did not immediately respond to those questions. Energy Department spokesperson Ben Dietrich said that Wright remains in close contact with U.S. oil companies and will meet with several of them Wednesday in Miami. Now, the industry is slowly coming to grips with a new reality facing Venezuela, okay, home to the largest oil reserves in the world, but on a political knife's edge after the U.S. military on Saturday captured leader Nicolas Maduro. Trump has also threatened Delcy Rodriguez, Maduro's second in command, who now sits atop the government there. Okay, so anyway, it's all so interesting, like I told you all. With that all being said, let's go to this. We're almost done, beloveds. Let's go to this rioter that was freed by Trump after the nefariousness at January the 6th at that riot. So basically, this man is from Alabama. He received a pardon for his participation, but he says his life hasn't changed a year later. Well, at least you're out of jail, you thug, you whole domestic terrorist. Okay, at least you're not any longer sitting in prison. I mean, Trump is so stupid for letting these thugs out.
Since the January 6th insurrection, on that day, pro-Trump rioters stormed the Capitol, demanding the results of the 2020 election be overturned. They attacked officers and destroyed parts of the building.
One officer died a day after the attack from their injuries, and another 4 took their own lives as a result of what happened. More than 1,000 people were charged by the Justice Department in connection with that riot. Well, just last year, President Donald Trump pardoned people convicted for their involvement, and some of them live right here in central Alabama.
WVTM 13's Aaron Llewellyn spoke with a man who served a year in prison for being at the Capitol that day. He shares the Hoax Bluffs man story about how life has changed for him since being pardoned by the president.
I didn't miss nothing, but I didn't gain nothing either. It stopped me dead in the water for a year.
And in the year since Russell Alford was pardoned by President Donald Trump, he says all he has is a piece of paper on a wall.
When they pardoned everybody, I was already been out for about 2 weeks. It doesn't really matter. I don't care if it's on there or not. I didn't do anything wrong. I don't care what, just because they can say that you did it wrong doesn't mean that you did it wrong.
Alford spent 365 days in a Mississippi prison. He was convicted for entering a restricted building, disorderly conduct, and demonstrating inside the Capitol during the January 6th insurrection.
I didn't go in walking around. I walked in the back door about 12 feet, took a, sit up against the wall and had my camera and videotaped for 11 minutes. Never said a word.
Alford admits he was never a fan of Trump's and had never been to one of his rallies or visited the nation's capital. He says he had the money to travel and decided he wanted to see what unfolded that day with his own eyes.
That the whole thing was a Broadway play. I could see it. I wanted to see Antifa. I wanted to see all of them. It was like a tailgate behind the Capitol. It was a party.
And while he still believes the 2020 election was stolen, a claim that is proven to be false by political experts.
I was tired of sitting on the couch and listening to the mainstream media bark at you and tell you what they wanted you to hear.
He says he sleeps happily at night, knowing he didn't lie to anyone, and says it's all God's will.
Somebody's going to stand up for it. I mean, that's as simple as that. You see what's going on. They're going to, here we are. We're going to burn the streets down again because somebody doesn't agree with somebody else. That's just ridiculous.
Alfred told me he almost went back to D.C. on Tuesday for the march to the Capitol. Dozens of people who were pardoned by Trump wanted to celebrate 5 years since the insurrection, but Alfred decided against it, saying it's all just a part of his journey.
Another chapter from my book. Simple as that. Another chapter from my book. I've got
in Hoax Bluff, Aaron Llewellyn, WBTN 13.
Now, Alford tells us that life really isn't any different since he was pardoned by Trump, other than the $20,000 he spent in legal fees. He says he was already semi-retired before going to prison and still owns his body shop business.
Watching the art.
Now, do you hear that? That just goes to show these people's their entitlements. Dude, you're supposed to be serving a whole prison sentence. You're not even supposed to be walking free. But yet you have the caucasity, dare I say, to complain. Okay? I find this all so interesting, don't you? This is crazy as HE double hockey sticks. Now let's go to this story where they're talking about $500,000 stolen. Okay, Elon Musk posted this to X because he loves to demonize Black and brown people with his ignorant self. I am clearly sure that he's demonic. That's just my opinion.
These defendants decided to take it. We are announcing federal charges against two men, Antonio Bonner and Saul Elisme, for large-scale SNAP benefit trafficking, a scheme that turned a program designed to feed families into a multi-million-dollar criminal enterprise. SNAP benefits are also known as food stamps. The defendants are charged with one count of food stamp fraud. As alleged in the charging documents, these men abused one of the government's most critical safety net programs for their own financial gain. This is taxpayer money meant to keep people from going hungry. These defendants decided to take it for themselves. These defendants exchanged SNAP benefits for cash, which they pocketed. Bonner, a naturalized U.S. citizen from Haiti, owned the Jesuela Variety Store. Elisme, a lawful permanent resident also from Haiti, owned the Saul Mache Mixe store. These two businesses were co-located within a single storefront in Boston. To be certain, these were not supermarkets. They were not full-service groceries. It would be a huge stretch to even call them convenience stores. In fact, the only thing convenient about these stores was how easy it was to commit SNAP benefit fraud. To put this in perspective, the Jesuela Variety Store is less than 150 square feet in size, smaller than some bathrooms. The Saul Mache Mixe store was approximately 500 square feet in space. By contrast, a supermarket can be 20,000 to 60,000 square feet in size, have a dozen or more registers, and employ numerous employees. Both the Jesuela Variety and Saul Mache Mixe stores had one register, no carriages, no hand baskets, and very little food for sale. One legitimate supermarket in the same area as these stores redeems approximately $80,000 in SNAP benefits per month. Over the last 20 months, the Jesuela Variety Store was redeeming between 3 and 6 times that amount monthly, with nowhere near the space, inventory, customers, or infrastructure to support it. The Sal Mache Mixe store redeemed over $120,000 in SNAP benefits in the last 6 months. Simply put, there is no plausible way SNAP eligible food could have been purchased from these stores for this long. Yet, these two stores are alleged to have illicitly trafficked nearly $7 million in SNAP benefits.
Okay, what do you all think about that? What do you all think about that? Do you all believe it? Okay, even if this is all true, where's the person who was in charge? Okay? Where's the person who was in charge? I'm so sick of them painting these narratives. Okay, and that it's just these immigrants, these black looking immigrants that are doing these things. Okay, please pay attention. Now, with that all being said, let's see what the folk, what the regular folk, the common folk are saying about this whole thing about this Russian ship being seized, this oil tanker. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. We're going to go to a couple more videos and then we're out of here. I may come back later.
Crazy. This is the O.J. Simpson of boat chases. Right, so it all starts when an oil tanker leaves Iran bound for Venezuela and it's spoofing its location. The ship then gets close to Venezuela and turns off its location. Then the U.S. finds it and attempts to board, but the crew takes evasive maneuvers and the U.S. gives up, believing that it needs different equipment to seize it for unknown reasons. The boat then flees north through the Atlantic and shoots out a distress signal, and now the boat is reportedly empty. And over Christmas, the U.S. is in hot pursuit all the way from the north of Venezuela to the north of Scotland. And all this time, the ship is still sailing completely in the dark until New Year's, when it claims that it's a Russian ship and paints their flag on the side. And the ship changing its name from the Bella 1 to the Marinera. Russia then asks the United States to stop chasing it, but the U.S. begins sending special forces to the UK. And then there are reports that Russia is sending a submarine and possibly even naval warships to escort the ship. All of this allegedly over a rusty, empty boat. That said, some are saying that Russia was trying to give Venezuela weapons via Iran. There's also the theory that Iran was trying to give Venezuela nuclear material. Right? And then this morning, the United States boarded it with assistance from the UK. And the U.S. says that it'll dock the ship at American ports, but we still don't know what was on the ship or if it was truly empty. So for now, follow to stay in the loop. This is crazy. This is the O.J. Simpson of boat chasing. Which it all starts when an oil tanker leaves Iran bound to Venezuela and it's spoofing its location. The ship then gets close to Venezuela and turns off its location. Then the U.S. finds it and attempts to board, but the crew takes evasive maneuvers and the U.S. gives up, believing that it needs different.
I'm sorry, beloveds. I'm sorry, beloveds. I was listening to another video and I forgot to mute myself. Okay, so anyway, with that all being said, this is all crazy. Absolutely crazy. Okay, so let's continue. A couple more clips. Here we go. Now, this is showing right when they were seizing the tanker, I believe. Yeah, this is showing the operation. Okay, Trump just has us in hot water with everybody at this point. This is all crazy. NATO allies upset. And Putin is loving this right now with the NATO allies because NATO feels like Russia is like the biggest security threat.
The U.S. has just seized a Russian-flagged oil tanker. Wait, we're going after Russia now? There's so much needed context. So this ship was initially encountered by the U.S. Coast Guard in the Caribbean on December 20th on its way to pick up oil at a Venezuelan port. At the time, it was called the Bella 1. It was not explicitly aligned with any country. Why not? Well, it was a part of what's called a dark fleet, which sanctioned nations like Russia, Iran, and Venezuela used to skirt around international sanctions. So since it was not flying a nation's flag on December 20th, international law made it susceptible to boarding. So the Coast Guard tried, and the vessel evaded. And for the last couple of weeks, we've been chasing it around. And what's happened since? In the days to follow, Russia tried to claim the ship and give it legal protection from seizure. They changed its name to the Marinera and listed it in the Russian Maritime Register of Shipping, and the ship's crew painted a Russian flag on it, although that raised questions about the legality of an overnight registration. And then what? Well, last night, Russia dispatched a submarine and additional surface warships to the vessel to escort it back to Russia. But then this morning, the U.S. Coast Guard seized the vessel northwest of the UK, seemingly before Russian assets arrived, as there was no military confrontation. Has this happened before? Yes, actually last year, the French Navy detained a tanker suspected of operating for Russia Russia's shadow fleet off the coast of western France. What's Russia and the U.S. saying about this seizure? Russia is calling it outright piracy and in violation of the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea while demanding its return. Meanwhile, the U.S. is saying the seizure shows we are not going to tolerate ships breaching sanctions and that the blockade of Venezuelan oil remains in full effect anywhere in the world. Wow. We have breaking news. The U.S. has just seized a Russian-flagged oil tanker.
Point, a lot of people have already heard that the United States has seized a Russian-flagged oil tanker. And at the same time, you guys, there are a lot of reports coming out online right now because we all know that Russia said that they were sending another military vessel and a submarine to escort this Russian oil tanker to Russia. And there are reports coming out online right now that that convoy ended up reaching that oil tanker. So as of right now, as the United States is currently seizing this oil tanker, the Russian submarine and the Russian ship has arrived. Let me know your thoughts in the comments over there.
I absolutely think it's going to escalate the situation. Okay, y'all heard what he said? Do you think this is going to escalate the situation? Yes. Okay, yes. I absolutely think so. Sunset Night said, wow, we are doomed. Okay. Woo, honey, this is all crazy. Okay. 6 for 3 soldiers said the U.S. owns the seas now. Apparently so, beloved. Trump has taken over the entire hemisphere as well as the sea, as well as Venezuela's oil, okay, and their government. All right? That's right. Goodness Reddit Bo said, Goodness Reddit Bo, you are not lying, beloved. Says, oh no. Okay, U.S. acting like Somalian pirates, aren't they? And that's what Russia accused them of too, piracy. This is all bad news. Okay, some people are cheering Trump on, his MAGA minions. They think this is all so good and Trump's Billy Bad Earth. And they're talking about, oh, Trump did this to Putin. Okay, well, let's see what happens after the fact. Okay, let's see what happens after the fact, because I don't think this is going to end well. Okay, Trump wants world dominion. We'll see how far they let him get. Okay, and let's not forget that yesterday he said if they lose the midterms, they're going to impeach him. He said they'll make up a reason. They'll find a reason to impeach me. Trump, nobody needs to make up a reason to impeach you. All of these nefarious things that you have done, just disregarded the Constitution, the rule of law, people's human rights, the civil rights, and all of these things, sending in troops, boots on the ground to terrorize Democratic-run cities and citizens just because you have political beefs with certain governors and whatnot. This man is dragging this country to hell, okay? But hey, this is what I told y'all at the beginning of the year when I talked about those nefarious tariffs. All right, and so with that all being said, I'm about to be out of here. Mel says Trump is barking up the wrong tree with Russia. Putin has those files and tapes of Trump and Epstein. You know what? He just might. But I tell you who has something on Trump, in my opinion. If you all remember, Idi Amin's son, I want to say his name is Lumumba. I think his name is Lumumba Amin, if I'm not mistaken. He said that some of these U.S. politicians were being blackmailed. Okay? That's what he said. Said they had video footage of them doing nefarious things. Okay? Something similar to what they say about the Epstein files. All right? And basically said they're being blackmailed. And the people who have this stuff, who have this information allegedly, are the people that Trump's always caping for, and the people that if you talk negatively about them, you could lose your passport, okay? You could lose your passport. So y'all know who I'm talking about. And with that all being said, I find it all so interesting. Okay, so likes up, everyone. Please like and share. And here's the thing. Idi Amin has several sons, but the one I'm talking about is Hussein Lumumba Amin. Okay, that's the one that did that video that I still have, and I meant to put it on Rumble, but I never did. But nonetheless, this is all so crazy. So likes up, everyone. Please like and share. Kikoba Fetty says, are the descendants of Operation Paperclip and Operation Northwood trying to get their last lick in before their car? Beloved, that is a good question. Are they? I don't know. Not trying to get their last lick in before their karma. I am so done. You all are hilarious to me. Okay, so anyway, with that all being said, Sosa says, we know, Queen. Christopher says they don't let you in power, okay, without having some type of dirt on you from the past. And I believe that, beloved. I absolutely believe that. Okay, so listen, I love you all to life. I hope you enjoy the rest of this beautiful day. I may come back later on tonight around 8 o'clock. It just depends on what, if any breaking news comes out. But listen, I have a special report that I want to do for you all. If I come back tonight, maybe I'll do that, or I may just do it tomorrow. But I definitely have a special report that is very interesting, but also very important, specifically for people who look like me. It is so nefarious, okay? We're going to have to take a break from Trump so we can talk about that. All right, so with that all being said, I love you all to life. I hope you enjoy the rest of this beautiful day. Each one teach one. That's how we grow and thrive. Do something productive, constructive, but never destructive. And always remember, beloveds, to keep the Most High first in your lives. Don't forget your lifelines, okay? Don't forget to be stocking up and all of that, and to stay prayed up, because this is absolutely spiritual warfare. Until next time, beloveds, peace.
Yo, Nick, hit him with that flavor. Gold all in my skin, God all in my blood. Kings all in my circle, you touch one of mine and you're done. They show no love for the queen, why you hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans? I got dreams like King Luther, shed blood like Kunta. You ain't helping my people, I ain't got nothing to say to ya. I want all the smoke like hookah. Talking reparations, America won't be great until they give us compensation. I'm like, I'm the hottest right now. See a bunch of lames out here trying to jock on my style. They be doing too much. I'm the queen, it's too easy. It's like they all at Popeyes, how they be talking so greasy. I just sit back and laugh while these haters get madder. So nefarious how they don't want my pockets with cheddar. I tell them they can do better. These snakes in the grass can leave a bite on your ass, cause y'all be trusting too fast. I got my foot on the gas, other one on they necks. Dropping receipts on haters, you better show some respect. I'm never facing regrets, we only facing the threats. Running through every challenge like a relay, break no sweat. It's a cold game, so I got that blanket with me. Now that my people awaken, ain't no going to sleep. I do not play by my piece, this time I'm playing for keeps. You talking slick, but when I see you like them ends, we gon' meet. And I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood. Kings all in my circle, you touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen, why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans, and I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood. Kings all in my circle, you touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen, why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans, and I got